The seal was breaking. 318 years it had held, and now the seventh layer cracked like ice under spring sun. Deep in the mountain's heart, where darkness lived and breathed, something ancient stirred. The tremor rippled upward through stone and soil, through roots and rock, until it reached the surface where an 18-year-old girl stood at the edge of the world she'd never seen. Rowan Ashworth felt it in her bones, a wrongness, a waking. "Rowan." Her grandfather's voice cracked like old wood. She turned to see Magnus Ashworth climbing the rocky path, his 70 years heavy in his shoulders but not in his eyes. Those eyes were sharp and afraid. "The pigs need feeding," he said, but they both knew he was lying. Always the pigs. Magnus kept 12 of them in pens carved from mountain stone. Rowan had named them all. Current favorites Duchess Baron and a particularly nasty sow called Empress, who bit anyone except her. But today even Empress was silent. "Something's wrong," Rowan said. "The mountain is old. Mountains shift." Magnus's weathered hand touched her shoulder with trembling fingers. "Come inside. Now." She'd lived 18 years on Crimson Peak and never heard fear in his voice. Not once, not until today. Before she could ask why the northern ridge exploded. Not fire, not force. Just a sound, a shriek of tearing stone, a roar of something ancient waking. Birds erupted from the trees in black clouds. The ground bucked beneath their feet. And in the distance, something fell from the sky like a falling star. Magnus, what? Inside. He grabbed her arm, yanked her toward the cottage. "Whatever happens, stay away from the northern passage. Do you understand? Stay away." But Rowan pulled free. She was already running toward the crash site, knife in hand, ignoring Magnus's shouts behind her. Because 18 years of isolation had taught her one thing: the world was bigger than her grandfather's warnings. And she was done being afraid of it. The man lay in a crater of broken branches and scattered earth. Rowan's breath caught. She'd seen exactly 3 people in her entire life: Magnus and 2 traders who'd climbed the mountain years ago looking for herbs. They'd been old, weathered, forgettable. This man was none of those things. He couldn't have been more than 26, with dark blonde, hair matted with blood, and a face that belonged in the stories Magnus read her about knights and heroes. His clothes were strange black leather, reinforced with silver, marked with symbols she didn't recognize. A sword lay 3 feet away, its blade etched with words in a language that made her head hurt to read. He wasn't breathing. Rowan knelt beside him, pressing fingers to his throat the way Magnus had shown her. "They're faint, but there. A pulse." "Don't die," she whispered, though she had no idea why she cared. She couldn't carry him. He was too tall, too heavy, too much. But she could drag and drag. She did inch by painful inch through the forest. Her muscles screamed. Sweat poured down her back despite the mountain cold. By the time she reached the cottage, the sun was setting and her hands were raw. Magnus met her at the door. His face went white. "Where did you find him?" "North Ridge. He fell." "I don't know from where." Rowan was panting. "He needs help. We should let him die." The words were so cold, so unlike Magnus, that Rowan actually stepped back. "What?" "Look at his sword, girl. Look at the marks." Magnus's hand shook as he pointed. "That's a hunter's blade. Silver blessed. Sanctified for killing." "Killing what?" Magnus's jaw worked. For a long moment he said nothing. Then things that should stay dead. But he helped her anyway, because Magnus, for all his warnings and walls, had never been able to turn away from someone bleeding. They laid the stranger on Rowan's bed and set to work. The injuries were severe: broken ribs, shattered collarbone, deep lacerations across his back like something had clawed him. Rowan cleaned the wounds while Magnus prepared poultices from herbs that grew only in Crimson Peak's shadow. "He won't make it through the night," Magnus muttered. He made it through 3. Sterling Blackthorn woke on the 4th day. Rowan was changing his bandages when his eyes opened, pale gray, like winter ice. He stared at her for a long moment, and she froze, suddenly aware of how close she was, how her hair fell loose around her face, how his gaze moved across her features like he was memorizing them. "You saved me," he said. His voice was rough from disuse. "You fell. I remember." He tried to sit up, failed, gasped in pain. "How long?" "3 days. 3. Something like panic flashed across his face. "I have to go. There's no time." He tried to stand. His legs gave out immediately. Rowan caught him struggling under his weight, and together they collapsed back onto the bed in a tangle of limbs and bandages. "You're an idiot," she said, breathless. "Frequently." He smiled despite the pain. "What's your name?" "Rowan. Rowan Ashworth." "Sterling Blackthorn. And I owe you my life." He looked around the small cottage, stone walls, simple furniture, windows that showed only mountain and sky. "Where am I, Crimson Peak." The color drained from his face. No, no, that's not possible. The seals should have... He stopped, looked at her again, really looked. You live here on the mountain. All my life. Sterling's expression shifted into something Rowan couldn't read. How old are you? We say, 18. She pulled away suddenly defensive. Old enough to save your life, apparently. 18. He said it like a prayer or a curse. Gods, you have no idea, do you? No idea what's sleeping under this mountain. Cold touched Rowan's spine. What are you talking about? But Sterling had gone pale again, his injuries catching it up with him. Later, he breathed. We'll talk later. He passed out. Rowan sat there into the dim cottage, her heart hammering, staring at this stranger who'd spoken about things sleeping beneath her home. Outside, the mountains shivered again. Just barely. Just enough. She told herself it was nothing. Magnus didn't trust Sterling. He's a hunter, the old man said on the 5th day while Sterling slept. They don't come to Crimson Peak by accident. What's a hunter? Exactly what it sounds like. Magnus's hands moved through the soil, pulling weeds with practiced violence. They hunt things, track them, kill them. What kind of things? The kind you don't want to know about. But Rowan did want to know. She'd spent 18 years not knowing, and the stranger in her bed had cracked something open. A door, a possibility. Sterling recovered slowly. On the 8th day, he walked to the window and stared out at the mountain peaks like a man seeing his own grave. Beautiful, he said softly, and terrible. Rowan brought him soup. You were going to tell me about what's sleeping here. Sterling took the bowl, their fingers brushed. Sit down, he said. This isn't a short story. She sat. 318 years ago, Sterling began. There was a war, humans against vampires. The vampires were winning. They were faster, stronger, nearly impossible to kill. Entire cities fell in nights. Rowan's soup sat forgotten. Vampires aren't real. They're very real, and they had a king. Sterling's voice dropped. Caspian Noctis, the Crimson King. 18 years old when he took the throne and more dangerous than any vampire before or since. They say he killed 100,000 humans by his 20th year. The number was too big to comprehend. If he was so powerful, how did the war end? Betrayal. Sterling looked at her with those winter eyes. His own people turned on him. They couldn't kill him, he was too strong. So they sealed him here. Under Crimson Peak, 7 seals, each one bound with the blood of 100 vampires. As long as the seals hold, he sleeps. If they break, he wakes up, Rowan finished, and the killing starts again. Silence filled the cottage. That's why we live here. That's why Magnus never lets me leave. I don't know. Sterling's voice was gentle. But I know this, I'm a hunter. I was sent here to make sure the seals never break. To make sure the Crimson King stays buried forever. His hand found hers, warm, solid, real. And if they do break, I'll do what I was trained to do. The conviction in his voice felt like safety, like certainty. Teach me, she said. Sterling blinked. What? Teach me how to fight. If there's something dangerous here, I should know how. He studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. All right. Can you throw a punch? I can break a man's nose. His laugh was surprised and genuine. Then we'll get along just fine. The 10 days that followed were the happiest of Rowan's life. Sterling taught her everything. Not just fighting, though. They sparred in the clearing behind the cottage, and he showed her how to use an opponent's weight against them, how to strike fast and retreat faster, but also the philosophy behind it. We protect the innocent, he said on the 9th day, while they rested after training. We stand between the darkness and the light. Rowan watched him as he spoke, firelight catching in his hair. He was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with his face and everything to do with his certainty. What about mercy? She asked. What about it? Is there room for mercy if something's dangerous but hasn't actually hurt anyone? Do you still kill it? Sterling's expression shifted. That's a complicated question. I'm not a simple person. No. His voice softened. You're really not. On the 10th day, something changed. They were sparring when she swept his legs and they went down together. She landed on top of him, victorious, laughing. Then she realized how close they were, how his chest rose and fell against hers. Rowan, he said quietly. She should have moved, should have pulled away. Instead, she stayed frozen, caught in winter gray eyes that looked at her like she was something precious. I shouldn't, Sterling whispered. This isn't why I came here. Why did you come here? To stop a monster. I'm not a monster. No, you're the furthest thing from it. His hand came up, tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear. You're everything the world should be. Sterling. I have to check the seals, he said abruptly, pulling back. It's why I'm here. I've been putting it off, but I can't wait anymore. Magnus appeared from the cottage. You're going into the deep mountain. I have to. Then I'm coming with you. Those tunnels are older than memory. Sterling nodded. He looked back at Rowan. Stay here, please. Nothing will happen, Magnus cut in. We'll be gone 3 hours, maybe 4. They left at dawn. Rowan waited 1 hour, 2, 3. On the 4th hour, the mountain screamed. The sound was like nothing Rowan had ever heard. A shriek of tearing stone. A roar of something ancient waking. The cottage shook. Dishes shattered. Empress and the other pigs went mad in their pens. Rowan ran. She grabbed her knife and plunged into the northern passage. The tunnel was narrow, rough-hewn, descending at an angle that made her slip and catch herself against cold stone. Darkness swallowed everything. Magnus Sterling. No answer. The tunnel opened into a cavern so vast she couldn't see the ceiling. And there in the center was the seal. It was beautiful. Terrible. A circle of symbols carved into living rock glowing with sick red light. 7 sections, each one pulsing like a heartbeat. 6 were intact. The 7th was shattered. And standing before it, horror on his face, was Sterling. What did you do? Rowan's voice was barely a whisper. He spun. Rowan, get back. What did you do? It was an accident, the symbol I touched. Sterling's hands shook. The 7th seal. It's broken. Where's Magnus? Eastern tunnels. Rowan, listen. We have maybe an hour before dawn. The cavern floor cracked. A chasm opened black and bottomless, and from that darkness came cold. Not the clean cold of mountain winter. This was the cold of graves, of endings, of 318 years of sleep burning away. Run, Sterling grabbed her gown and now. They ran. The mountain was collapsing, or waking, or both. Tunnels that had been stable for centuries suddenly crumbled. Sterling pulled Rowan through passages she couldn't see, his hunter training guiding them through chaos. They burst from the northern passage into dawn light. Magnus was there, his face white. The seal was all the old man said. Broken, Sterling confirmed. 7th layer. Magnus looked at Rowan, really looked like he was memorizing her. Then we're out of time. Grandfather, what? Your mother was vampire royalty, Princess Lenore. She fell in love with a human hunter. They had you, and both sides wanted them dead for that sin. The world tilted. Rowan couldn't breathe. What? I was part of the team sent to kill them. I couldn't save them both. But I saved you. Magnus's weathered hand touched her face. If the Crimson King wakes, nowhere is safe. Then we leave, all 3 of us. The cottage exploded. Not fire, not force, just gone. One moment it stood, the next rubble. The pigs squealed and scattered. And standing in the ruins, surrounded by settling dust, was a boy. He looked about 18, thin to the point of emaciation, with bone-white skin and black hair that fell past his shoulders. His eyes were closed. His mouth hung open like he'd forgotten how to use it. And he was the most dangerous thing Rowan had ever seen. Caspian Noctis, Sterling breathed. The boy's eyes opened. They were red, pure crimson, like someone had poured wine into his skull. Those eyes found Rowan, fixed on her. Something passed across the boy's ruined face, confusion maybe, or recognition. Then he collapsed. Now, Sterling drew his sword. While he's weak, but he didn't move, because the Crimson King looked like a child, looked broken, looked like he was dying. Sterling, Rowan said slowly, he's not attacking. He will, as soon as he recovers. He can't even stand. But she was already moving, already kneeling beside the collapsed boy. His skin was ice cold. His chest barely moved. Up close, she could see scars covering his body. Old ones, new ones, layered like pages in a book of suffering. What did they do to you? She whispered. The boy's eyes flickered open, looked at her, and impossibly one word emerged from his broken mouth. Help. Sterling's sword was at her throat before she could blink. Move. Away. Now. He asked for help. He's a monster. He's dying. Good. That's what he deserves. Did he? Rowan looked up at this man she'd started to care for. Did you see him kill anyone? Or did you just believe the stories? The stories are truth. Were written by the people who betrayed him. Magnus's voice cut through the clearing. The old man stood between them, protective. You never questioned that. Sterling's sword wavered. This is my mission. Then kill him, Rowan said flatly. But know that you'll be killing someone who's done nothing but ask for help. They all looked. The boy lay in the rubble, barely breathing, red eyes struggling to focus. He didn't look manipulative. He looked like someone who'd been tortured for 3 centuries. Sterling lowered his sword. This is a mistake. Maybe, Rowan touched the boy's shoulder, but it's mine to make. The sound of horses stopped all conversation. They came from the southern trail, a dozen riders in black and silver. At their head, riding a white stallion, was a man Rowan recognized from Sterling's descriptions. Thaddeus Cross, Guildmaster. Sterling Blackthorn. Thaddeus's voice echoed across the peaks. Step away from the vampire. Sterling didn't move. Sir, the situation is you've failed. Thaddeus's cold gaze moved to Rowan. Harboring a vampire is death. Move aside. No, Magnus stepped forward. Thaddeus, old friend, this isn't what it looks like. Isn't it? The Guildmaster's smile was cruel. It looks like you've been hiding a hybrid on this mountain for 18 years. It looks like treason. Hybrid. The word hung in the air like an executioner's blade. We've known for years, Thaddeus continued, but now the king is awake and we can't afford loose ends. He raised his hand. Kill them, all 3. The hunters dismounted, drew weapons, advanced. Sterling stood frozen. Rowan saw the war in his face, duty versus something else. Please, she said, just that, one word. Magnus didn't wait. The old man moved like he'd shed 70 years in a heartbeat, drawing a sword Rowan had never seen. Run, he shouted. Take the boy and run, grandfather. I said run. Sterling grabbed her. Come on, I can't leave him. But Rowan tore free, ran back, grabbed the unconscious boy with strength she didn't know she had. Magnus was surrounded, 3 hunters against 1 old man. He was good, better than good. But age and numbers had their own math. I love you, he called to Rowan. Remember that. You're my granddaughter, and Thaddeus's blade caught him across the ribs. Deep, brutal. Magnus stumbled, fell to one knee. No, Rowan screamed. Something inside her shattered, or awakened. Her vision went red, not like Caspian's eyes, but like rage-given sight. Heat flooded her veins. Power she'd never felt suddenly burning under her skin. She screamed. The sound was human and inhuman at once. 3 hunters collapsed, blood pouring from their ears. The others staggered back. Hybrid, Thaddeus breathed, just like her mother. Sterling stood between them, sword raised. Leave, now. Or what, you'll betray your oath. Not anymore. Sterling attacked. It was beautiful and terrible. He moved through the hunters like a dancer, every strike precise. But there were too many. A blade caught his shoulder, another his leg. He fell. Sterling, Rowan's voice cracked. Go, he gasped. Take him and go. I'll find you. Lies, she could see it in his eyes. But the boy in her arms stirred, whispered something, and suddenly strength flooded her limbs, not hers, but borrowed. The Crimson King lending her what little power he had left. Rowan ran. She ran through paths only mountain goats should navigate. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs screamed. She ran until Crimson Peak was a shadow behind her, until the sounds of fighting faded to nothing. When she finally stopped, night had fallen. She was somewhere in the deep forest with nothing but the clothes on her back and a vampire king who might wake up and kill her. Rowan laid him down gently, looked back toward the mountain. Magnus was wounded, maybe dying. Sterling had betrayed his order for her, and she was alone with a monster she'd chosen to save. What have I done? She whispered. The boy's red eyes opened, looked at her. They weren't cruel. They were old, ancient, filled with sadness that had no bottom. Save me, he rasped. Why, I don't know. Foolish. Probably. He tried to sit up, failed. What's your name? Rowan. Rowan Ashworth. The ghost of a smile touched his face. Pretty name for a foolish girl. His eyes started to close. I'm Caspian. I'm sorry. For what? For being worth saving. Then unconsciousness took him again, and Rowan was left in the dark forest with a dying vampire, and the ruins of her entire life scattered behind her. Somewhere in the distance, wolves began to howl. She held the Crimson King closer and wondered if mercy was just another word for suicide. The first part of her story was over. The second was just beginning, and nothing would ever be the same. The first 3 days, Caspian couldn't even speak. Rowan found shelter in a cave hidden behind a waterfall, the entrance narrow enough that only someone desperate would squeeze through. Inside, the space opened like cupped hands. Dry, dark, safe. She laid Caspian on moss she'd gathered, covered him with her cloak. He shivered despite the fabric, his skin still ice cold, still wrong. His eyes would open sometimes, those crimson pools trying to focus, trying to understand where he was. Then they'd close again, and he'd sink back into whatever dreams haunted 300-year-old kings. Rowan hunted. Badly. She'd never had to feed herself before. Magnus had always handled that. But desperation taught her quickly. Snare a rabbit, skin it with shaking hands, cook it over a fire small enough that the smoke wouldn't give them away. She ate half, saved half for when Caspian woke, if he woke. On the third night, he finally did. Rowan was dozing when she heard movement. She jerked awake, knife already in hand, to find Caspian sitting up. He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else, touched his face, his hair, slowly cataloging a body he'd been separated from for longer than most civilizations lasted. "How do you feel?" Her voice was rough from disuse. He turned those red eyes on her. Strange. Strange how, like I'm wearing someone else's skin. He flexed his fingers. Everything's wrong, too small, too weak. He trailed off, confusion crossing his gaunt face. "I don't remember." "Your name is Caspian, Caspian Noctis. Is it?" He said it like a question. Rowan moved closer slowly, the way you'd approach a wounded animal. "You were sealed, under Crimson Peak, for 318 years. The number meant nothing to him. She could see it in his eyes. That vast span of time was just words. "Why?" he asked. "I don't know. I was hoping you could tell me." "I can't tell you anything. I don't." His breath hitched. "I don't remember." But he was lying. Rowan could see it in the way his hands trembled. "There's food," she said instead. "Rabbit. It's cold, but I don't eat food." The words hung between them. Rowan swallowed. "What do you eat?" Caspian looked at her, then really looked, and she saw the hunger. It lived behind his eyes like a second presence. Old, patient, waiting. "Blood," he whispered. She should have been afraid, should have grabbed her knife and run. Instead, she heard herself say, "When did you last feed?" 318 years ago. "Apparently." "Then you must be starving." "I am." His voice dropped to something barely audible. "Every moment, but I won't take from you." "Why not?" "Because you saved me." He turned away, shoulders hunched. "And I've taken enough from people who didn't deserve it." Rowan stood, went to her small supply of provisions, came back and knelt in front of him. "What are you doing?" Caspian asked. "Giving you a choice." She drew her knife. "You can starve and die, or you can live. I've already chosen to save you once. Don't make me watch you waste it. You don't understand what you're offering." "Then explain it to me." He met her eyes. "If I drink from you, I'll taste everything. Your memories, your fears, your life. There's no privacy in blood. And once I start, I might not be able to stop." "Do you want to stop?" "More than anything." "Then you will." Rowan pressed the knife to her wrist. "I trust you." "You shouldn't." Too late. The blade was sharp. The cut was clean. Blood welled dark and red, and Caspian's whole body went rigid. "Rowan, drink." He lunged, not at her throat like she'd half expected, at her wrist. His mouth found the wound and sealed over it, and the sensation was nothing like she'd imagined. Not pain, not pleasure, something between and beyond intimate in a way that made her skin flush. She felt him drinking, felt the pull, felt something else too, his presence sliding into her mind like a whisper, images flashing. Her childhood, Magnus teaching her to fight. Sterling's smile, the cottage exploding, all of it bleeding out with her blood flowing into him. And in return, she tasted his memories too. Not clearly, just fragments, flashes of a life too long to comprehend. A throne room, a crown too heavy for a boy's head, someone screaming, blood on marble floors, a girl with dark hair and laughing eyes, a sword through her chest, darkness, cold, silence that went on forever. Rowan gasped. Caspian pulled back, his mouth stained red, his eyes wide with horror. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I didn't mean the connection. It goes both ways." "Who was she?" Rowan's voice shook. "The girl in your memory." Caspian went very still. "How much did you see?" "Not much, just her, and how you felt when she died." He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were no longer just red. They were human, haunted, real. "Her name was Elise," he said quietly. "She was human. I was 18 and stupid and in love with someone I could never have. The elders found out. They killed her to teach me a lesson." "What lesson?" "That vampires don't love humans. They feed on them." His laugh was bitter. Is that why they sealed you? No. Caspian looked at his hand still trembling slightly. They sealed me because I refused to forget her. Because when they ordered me to lead armies against humanity, to turn the war into extermination, I said no. Rowan's breath caught. But the stories, they say you killed 100,000 people. The elders killed them. In my name, without my knowledge. His voice was flat, empty. By the time I found out, it was too late. The humans blamed me. My own people betrayed me to save themselves. And I was sealed under that mountain with nothing but the memory of Elisa's face and the screams of 100,000 dead. The cave was silent, except for the waterfall outside. Rowan's wrist had already stopped bleeding. Caspian's saliva had some kind of healing property. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. It was 318 years ago. Pain doesn't have an expiration date. He looked at her then with something like wonder. No, it doesn't. They sat in the dark, two broken people, holding fragments of each other's suffering, and for the first time since Magnus fell, Rowan didn't feel alone. The memories came back slowly like water through cracks. Over the next week as they moved through the forest, always moving, always running, Caspian would suddenly stop. His eyes would go distant, and Rowan learned to recognize the signs. A memory surfacing, a piece of himself returning. Some were small, the name of a servant who'd been kind to him, the layout of a castle that no longer existed. Some were devastating. They were crossing a stream when he froze mid-step. Theron, he breathed. Who? My younger brother. He was 10 when they sealed me. He must be... Caspian's face crumpled. Dead. Dust. 300 years dead. Rowan took his hand, said nothing. There was nothing to say. That night, they made camp in the ruins of an old watchtower. Rowan had gotten better at hunting. Her hybrid blood apparently came with enhanced senses she was only now discovering. She'd caught 3 rabbits and a pheasant. Caspian still couldn't eat solid food, but he was stronger now. The blood had helped. Her blood. She'd given it to him twice more since that first time. Each feeding brought the same intimate connection, the same exchange of memories. It was terrifying and addictive in equal measure. Can I ask you something? Rowan said, turning the pheasant over the fire. Always. When you drink from me, you see my memories. Do you judge them? Caspian looked up from where he sat. What do you mean? I've never left Crimson Peak before this. I don't know anything about the world. You seem like the bravest person I've ever met. The words were so sincere they hurt. Rowan focused on the fire. I left Magnus behind. You survived. That's what he wanted. I left Sterling behind. He made his choice. I'm running away with a vampire everyone wants dead. Yes, Caspian smiled. You're absolutely terrible at self-preservation. It's honestly impressive. Despite everything, Rowan laughed. You're one to talk. They fell into comfortable silence. The fire crackled. Night birds called. Rowan, Caspian's voice was soft. Yeah. Thank you for not leaving me to die, for believing I was worth saving, even when I didn't believe it myself. She looked at him across the fire, this boy who was really a king, who was really just someone trying to remember how to be human. His red eyes caught the firelight and turned it into something almost warm. You're welcome, she said, and manned it with everything she had. Magnus found them on the 9th day. Rowan was gathering firewood when she heard the horse. She dropped everything, knife already drawn, heart hammering. They'd been so careful. How had the hunters found them? But the rider who emerged from the trees wasn't a hunter, it was her grandfather. Magnus. She ran to him, joy flooding through her. You're alive, I thought. Then she saw the blood. It soaked through his shirt, dark and spreading. His face was gray. The wound across his ribs was wrapped in makeshift bandages, but they were soaked through. He slid from the horse more than dismounted, and Rowan caught him before he fell. Grandfather, no. No. Listen, Magnus gasped. His hands clutched her arms with desperate strength. Don't have much time. Need to tell you. Don't talk. I'll get help. There is no help. He coughed, red staining his lips. Thaddeus's blade was poisoned. Been riding 2 days to find you. To warn you. Caspian appeared moving with inhuman silence. He knelt beside them, his face grave. The wound is mortal. I know. Magnus looked at the vampire king with something like recognition. You look like your mother. She had kind eyes, too. Caspian froze. You knew my mother? Knew of her. Knew what the elders did to her for bearing a son who wouldn't be cruel. Magnus coughed again. Same thing they did to Rowan's mother. What? Rowan's voice cracked. You said my mother was vampire royalty. Princess Lenore. You never said she was Caspian's aunt. Magnus's eyes found hers, his father's younger sister. She fell in love with a human hunter named William. They ran away together. Had you. And both vampire elders and the Hunters Guild wanted them dead for that sin. The world tilted. Rowan couldn't breathe. You're saying Caspian and I are related, distantly, his aunt's daughter. Magnus's grip tightened. I was part of the team sent to kill your parents, 15 of us. We found them in a village on the southern coast. Your mother fought like a demon. Your father died protecting her. In the end, it was my blade that... He closed his eyes. I couldn't save them both. But I heard you crying in the next room, a baby. Innocent. And I thought maybe I could save something. Tears poured down Rowan's face. You killed my mother. Yes. And then you raised me. Yes. Magnus opened his eyes. I know it doesn't make it right. I know there's no forgiveness for what I did. But I loved you, Rowan. Every day for 18 years I loved you like you were my own. Why are you telling me this now? Because you need to know what you are. His hand touched her face and she hated how much she leaned into it. You're not just hybrid. You're royal vampire blood mixed with hunter lineage. The only one of your kind. Thaddeus knows. The elders know. They'll hunt you forever because you're proof that the two sides can create something stronger than either. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm breaking. You're the strongest person I know. Magnus smiled, blood on his teeth. You saved a vampire king everyone said was evil. You chose mercy over hate. You're exactly what your mother hoped you'd be. His breathing was getting shallower. Rowan clutched his hands. Don't go. Please, I can't lose you too. You're not losing me. I'll always, he coughed, violent, always be proud of you. My granddaughter. He went still. Rowan felt something inside her shatter completely. She'd held together through the cottage, exploding. Through running, through fear and exhaustion and uncertainty. But this was too much. She screamed. The sound tore from her throat with all the grief she'd been holding back, and it carried power. Real power. The hybrid blood in her veins ignited like lightning. Trees around them cracked. The ground trembled. Caspian staggered back, shielding his face from the raw energy pouring off her. Rowan, he reached for her. Rowan, you have to stop. You'll tear yourself apart. But she couldn't stop, didn't want to stop. The pain was a living thing and it needed out. Caspian did the only thing he could think of. He pulled her into his arms. The contact grounded her. His coldness against her heat, his stillness against her chaos. He held her while she sobbed into his chest, held her while the power slowly ebbed, held her while the grief became something bearable instead of apocalyptic. I've got you, he whispered into her hair. I've got you. Everyone I love died. Not everyone, not me. He pulled back just enough to look at her. I'm already dead, remember 318 years of practice. It was a terrible joke. It made her laugh anyway, watery and broken. There, Caspian said softly, that's better. Rain started falling, soft at first, then harder. It washed the blood from Magnus's body, washed the tears from Rowan's face. They buried him under an oak tree using rocks to mark the grave, since neither of them had tools for digging. Rowan knelt there for a long time after Caspian standing guard behind her. He loved you, the Vampire King finally said. I could see it in how he looked at you. Even dying, all he cared about was protecting you. He killed my mother and spent 18 years trying to make it right. That doesn't erase what he did, but it means something. What? That people can change. That past sins don't have to define us forever. Caspian knelt beside her. I killed people too, Rowan. Maybe not 100,000, but enough. I have blood on my hands that will never wash clean. If Magnus could find redemption, maybe you can too. He nodded. They stayed there in the rain, two orphans of impossible circumstances, and something shifted between them. Deepened. Became more than just savior and saved. When Caspian took her hand, Rowan didn't pull away. When she leaned against his shoulder, he wrapped an arm around her. And when the rain finally stopped and the moon came out, they were still there holding each other against the dark. They traveled for 3 more days before Rowan made her decision. I need to see Sterling, she said one morning while they broke camp. Caspian's hand stilled on his bedroll. Why, Cha? Because I need to know if what we had was real, or if it was all lies. He's a hunter, Rowan. I know him. You knew who he pretended to be. The words stung because they might be true. But Rowan couldn't let it go. Sterling had taught her about justice, about standing between darkness and light. He'd looked at her like she was precious. Where would he be? Caspian asked quietly. Phoenix Hall. It's the Hunters Guild headquarters, 3 days south. That's suicide. Then don't come with me. Don't be stupid. Caspian shouldered his pack. If you're walking into hell, I'm walking with you. Why? He looked at her then with those red eyes that had become familiar, almost beautiful. Because 318 years ago, someone I loved died while I did nothing. I won't make that mistake twice. So they went to Phoenix Hall. The building rose from the southern plains like a monument to righteousness. White stone that gleamed in the sun. Towers that scraped the sky. Banners showing the hunter's symbol, a sword through a crescent moon. Rowan felt small looking at it. Not too late to turn back, Caspian murmured. Yes, it is. She dressed carefully, washed in a stream, braided her hair. She wanted Sterling to see her as she'd been on the mountain. If this goes wrong, Caspian said, I want you to run. I won't leave you. Rowan, I said I won't leave you. She grabbed his hand. We're in this together now. His fingers tightened on hers. Worse, probably. Definitely. They waited for nightfall. Then Rowan went alone, leaving Caspian in the trees with strict instructions to flee if she wasn't back by dawn. Getting into Phoenix Hall was easier than expected. The servants' entrance was poorly guarded. Rowan slipped in with a laundry delivery, kept her head down, followed the flow of traffic. She found Sterling in the Great Hall. And he wasn't alone. The room was decorated for celebration. Candles everywhere. Flowers in massive arrangements. Tables laden with food and wine. And in the center, on a raised platform, stood Sterling Blackthorne. He wore formal hunter's dress, white and silver ceremonial sword at his hip. The woman beside him wore a wedding dress. Rowan's world cracked down the middle. She was beautiful. The bride, tall and elegant with copper hair and features that belonged in paintings. She laughed at something Sterling said, touching his arm with casual intimacy. Isolde Ravencroft, someone beside Rowan whispered, the commander's daughter. They've been engaged since childhood. Finally tying the knot. Since childhood, Sterling had been engaged, the whole time on Crimson Peak. The whole time he'd looked at Rowan like she was special. He'd been promised to someone else. Rowan turned to leave, but her movement caught his eye. Sterling's gaze found her across the crowded hall, and she watched his expression shift. Surprise. Then something darker. He said something to Isolde, kissed her hand, and walked straight toward Rowan. Outside, he said quietly as he passed. Now. She followed numbly. They stepped into a garden, roses and moonlight, and the kind of beauty that felt like mockery. Sterling closed the door behind them. You shouldn't be here, he said. I needed to see you. Why? To know if any of it was real. Rowan's voice shook. Was any of it real, or was I just a means to an end? Sterling's jaw tightened. What do you want me to say? The truth. The truth? He laughed, and it was cruel. Fine, I used you. I needed to find the Crimson King, and you were my way in. Every conversation, every lesson, every moment I spent pretending to care, it was all part of the mission. Each word landed like a blade. You're lying. Am I? Sterling pushed off the door, moved closer. You're a child, Rowan. You don't know anything about the world. I know you told me about protecting the innocent. And I meant it, but the Crimson King isn't innocent. His eyes were ice. My family was killed by vampires when I was 12. My mother, my father, my little sister. They died screaming. So forgive me if I can't extend mercy to the creatures that destroyed my life. Caspian didn't kill them. His kind did. That's enough. Is that what you told yourself when you were holding my hand? Sterling flinched, just barely, but she saw it. You did care, Rowan breathed. Didn't you? It doesn't matter what I felt. His voice dropped. I'm a hunter. Isolde is a hunter. We serve the guild, and the orders are clear: vampires deep. Those who protect them die. Nothing is that simple. It is when you stop being a fool. Sterling turned away. Go, Rowan. Take your vampire king and run, because if you stay here, I will kill you both. I don't believe you. Then you're more naive than I thought. The door opened. Isolde Ravencroft stepped out, beautiful and cold. Sterling, the ceremony's about to start. Her gaze swept over Rowan with dismissive contempt. Oh, is this the mountain girl? She was just leaving, Sterling said. Was she? Isolde's smile was sharp. Or should we detain her, use her as bait? Rowan's hand went to her knife. I'm nobody's bait. Feisty, Isolde moved closer, circling like a predator. I can see why Sterling was tempted. Isolde, Sterling warned. What, I'm just talking. but her hand had moved to her own weapon, unless she'd like to make this interesting. She lunged. The attack came fast, professional, deadly. Rowan barely dodged Sterling's training, the only thing saving her. She rolled, came up with her knife drawn, blocked the second strike. Guards, Isolde called. Intruder. Men poured from the hall, a dozen hunters, 20 more. Rowan was surrounded in seconds. This is a mistake, she said. The only mistake was letting you live. Isolde gestured. Take her, lock her in the eastern tower. We'll use her to draw out the vampire. No, Sterling stepped between them. I'll handle this. Will you? Isolde's voice was dangerous. Because from where I stand, it looks like you're protecting her. Again. They stared at each other. Tension crackled. Then Sterling's shoulders slumped. Do what you want, he said quietly. I'm done. He walked back inside. Rowan felt something in her chest die. The guards grabbed her. She didn't fight. What was the point? Sterling had made his choice. They were dragging her toward the tower when the sky exploded. Caspian hit the ground like a meteor. He'd been holding back, Rowan realized. All this time he'd been weak recovering. But now he was fury incarnate. Power she'd only glimpsed before flooded through him. He moved faster than sight. One moment he was falling. The next 3 guards were unconscious. The next 5 more. He didn't kill, but every strike was precise, devastating, final. Get away from her, Caspian snarled. His voice carried command. Ancient authority. Half the guards dropped their weapons and ran. The others attacked. It was beautiful and terrible. Caspian fought with a grace that came from centuries of practice. He disarmed one man, broke another's arm, sent a third flying into a fountain. And through it all, his eyes never left Rowan. Are you hurt? He called. I'm fine. Good. Stay behind me. Isolde appeared, sword drawn. The Crimson King. Finally. Her smile was victorious. Kill him. 50 gold pieces to whoever brings me his head. 20 hunters surged forward. Caspian met them head on. It shouldn't have been possible. 1 against 20. But he was ancient, powerful, desperate. He moved through them like a storm. Rowan watched Sterling emerge from the hall. Watched him see the carnage. Watched him draw his blessed silver sword. Sterling, don't, she screamed. But he was already moving. The two collided in the center of the garden. Sterling's blade gleamed. Caspian's bare hands caught it, held it, red eyes blazing. So you're the one who taught her about mercy, Caspian said softly. And then you abandoned her. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. They broke apart, circled. Sterling was skilled, the best hunter of his generation. But Caspian was something older. The fight was brutal, fast. Sterling got in 2 good hits, drew blood that looked black in the moonlight. But Caspian was faster, stronger, and he was fighting for something Sterling had given up. He disarmed the hunter with a move too quick to follow, sent him sprawling. I should kill you, Caspian said, standing over him, for what you did to her. Then do it. When Sterling looked up with empty eyes. I'm already dead inside. Caspian's fist clenched. Rowan saw him fighting with himself. Caspian, she called. Don't, please. He looked at her. Something in his expression softened. For you, he said quietly. Then to Sterling, you don't deserve her mercy, but she's giving it anyway. Live with that. He left Sterling in the dirt and came to Rowan, swept her into his arms, and ran. They ran like the world was ending, through gardens, over walls, into forests that swallowed them whole. Behind them, Phoenix Hall erupted in chaos, but they were already gone. They didn't stop until dawn. When they finally collapsed in a meadow miles from anywhere, both were shaking. That was stupid, she gasped. Yes. You could have died. Yes. Why did you do it? Caspian rolled onto his back, looking at the lightning sky. 318 years, he said quietly. I've been alive for 318 years. I've lost everyone I ever loved. I've watched kingdoms crumble. I've been betrayed, sealed, forgotten. And in all that time, I never felt like I had a reason to exist. He turned his head to look at her. Then you saved me. This girl who owed me nothing. And I thought, maybe there's still something worth fighting for. Rowan's eyes burned. Caspian. I'm not asking for anything, he continued. I know what I am, but I need you to know that whatever happens next, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. What a hope. They were so close. Close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his crimson eyes. We should build Shadow Covenant, Rowan said suddenly. Caspian blinked. What, a place for people like us, people who don't fit in either world, anyone who needs sanctuary. She sat up, energy flooding through her. We could protect them, Create something new. Rowan, that's crazy impossible? She grabbed his hand. Yes, but so is everything we've already done. Caspian looked at their joined hands, then at her face. Then he smiled, really smiled for the first time since she'd known him. Shadow Covenant, he said. I like it. Partners, partners. He squeezed her hand. Though I should warn you, I'm terrible at building things. Good thing I'm not. They laughed. And there in the dawn light, with the whole world against them, and nothing but each other to hold on to, they began planning something impossible. A sanctuary, a rebellion, a future. The second part of their story was ending, but the third was about to shake the foundations of everything. Shadow Covenant began with 7 people in a burned-out chapel. Rowan found them in the ruins of a village the hunters had raised 3 humans accused of sympathizing with vampires, 2 vampires who'd refused to kill, and a pair of children orphaned when their hybrid mother was executed. They were starving, terrified, waiting to die. You're safe now, Rowan told them. They didn't believe her at first. How could they? She was 19 years old with a vampire at her side and nothing but conviction holding her together. But she fed them, gave them shelter, protected them when another hunter patrol came through, and slowly, impossibly, they began to believe. Word spread like wildfire. There was a place, a sanctuary, a girl who'd defied both vampire elders and the Hunters Guild and somehow lived to tell about it. The Crimson Queen, they called her. Rowan hated the name, but she wore it anyway. Within 3 months, Shadow Covenant had 50 members. Within 6, 200. They took over an abandoned fortress in the Shadowlands neutral territory neither vampires nor hunters claimed. Rowan organized defenses, set up training, created rules that seemed radical. No killing unless in self-defense. No feeding without consent. Human and vampire working together as equals. It shouldn't have worked. It did. Caspian watched it all with something like awe. His power had returned fully now, 318 years of compressed strength flowing back into a body that remembered how to wield it. He could move faster than sight, hear heartbeats from a mile away, but he never used that power to rule. This is yours, he told Rowan one night, 6 months after Shadow Covenant's founding. They stood on the fortress battlements, watching new arrivals stream through the gates. Your vision, your courage. You're my advisor, my protector, She stopped, uncertain how to finish. Your what? Friend seemed too small, ally too distant. In the months of building Shadow Covenant together, something had shifted between them. Deepened. Every strategy session that ran late into the night. Every time he caught her when she stumbled from exhaustion. Every moment she caught herself staring at his profile in firelight. My partner, she finally said. Caspian smiled. Partner, I like that. He didn't say what they both knew. That partner was becoming insufficient. That the space between them was charged with something neither had named. Rowan was 19 now, old enough to know what she felt. Too scared to say it, because loving a vampire king seemed like asking for heartbreak. The first warning came on a Tuesday. A messenger arrived half dead from riding with news that made Rowan's blood run cold. The Elder Council, the ancient vampires who'd sealed Caspian 3 centuries ago, had called a gathering. Every vampire clan was summoned to Void Cathedral in 7 days. They're planning something, Caspian said, studying the message. His face was grim. They don't call gatherings unless it's apocalyptic. What could be apocalyptic enough? Us. He looked at her. Shadow Covenant. We're proof that vampires and humans can coexist. That threatens everything they've built. So what do? We attend. Rowan stared. Are you insane? They'll kill you on sight. Probably, Caspian's smile was sharp, but they can't start the gathering without the Crimson King. Tradition. I can use that. That's the worst plan I've ever heard. You have a better one. She didn't, so 5 days later, they rode for Void Cathedral with 20 of their best fighters. Rowan insisted on coming despite Caspian's protests. Where you go, I go, she said. He looked at her across the campfire the night before they arrived, and something in his expression cracked open. You mean that? Of course I do. Why, I'm a vampire, Rowan. Your hunter blood should be screaming at you to run. My hunter blood is quiet. She moved closer. And my vampire blood recognizes you. Not as a king, not as a monster, as someone who's been alone too long. I'm not alone anymore. Neither am I. They were inches apart. The fire crackled. Caspian's hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers touched her face with devastating gentleness. If we survive tomorrow, he whispered, I need to tell you something. Tell me now. Now is too soon. After is better. What if there is no after? Then I'll tell you in whatever comes next. He kissed her forehead, drew back, left her breathless and aching and absolutely certain she was in love with him. Void Cathedral rose from black rock like a monument to darkness. Obsidian spires, windows that swallowed light, gargoyles that looked too alive. Everything about it whispered wrong. Last chance to turn back, Caspian said. Not happening. They walked through the main gates. Every vampire in the courtyard turned to stare. Whispers rippled. The Crimson King, alive. Here. The Elder Council waited inside. 7 vampires so old they barely looked human anymore. Skin like paper, eyes like bottomless wells. They sat on thrones carved from single pieces of stone, and when they spoke, their voices layered together like a choir from hell. Caspian, Noctis, they said in unison, you dare return. I dare many things. Caspian's voice was steady. Why the gathering? To address a problem. The eldest, a creature called Mordecai, who'd been ancient when Rome fell, leaned forward. You and your pet human have created an abomination, a place where our kind mingles with prey. It cannot stand. Shadow Covenant harms no one. It harms tradition, order, the natural hierarchy. Another elder female, beautiful in a way that felt like poison, smiled. We've decided to eliminate it. Every vampire who joined you will be executed. Every human drained, the fortress razed. Rowan's hand went to her sword. Caspian caught her wrist, held her back. You can't, he said quietly. We've committed no crime. You exist. That's crime enough. Then come for me. Leave them alone. Oh, we will come for you. Oh. Mordecai's smile widened. But first, we have a gift, the Sanguine Throne. The floor in the center of the cathedral split open. Something rose from below, a throne carved from crystallized blood pulsing with sick red light. Legends say whoever sits upon the Sanguine Throne becomes the true vampire king, Mordecai continued. United power, absolute authority. That's a myth, Caspian said. Is it sit down, find out? And if I refuse, then we destroy Shadow Covenant tomorrow, your choice. Become the king you were meant to be, or watch everything you've built burn. Rowan could see the trap. This wasn't an offer. It was a noose disguised as a crown. Don't, she whispered to Caspian. Something's wrong. I know, but he was looking at the throne with terrible focus. But if it's real, if I can command all vampires, I could end this. Or die trying. Probably must. He kissed her hand. But you'll be safe. That's what matters. Before she could stop him, he walked toward the throne. The cathedral doors exploded inward. Sterling Blackthorn strode in, battered and bleeding, his sword drawn. Behind him, chaos sounds of fighting screams, the clash of steel. Get away from that throne, Sterling shouted. Everyone froze. Caspian stopped 3 feet from the Sanguine Throne. The elders hissed in fury. Sterling, Rowan breathed. He looked terrible, thinner than she remembered. Dark circles under winter-gray eyes, but alive. It's a trap, he gasped, fighting toward them through a tide of lesser vampires. The throne doesn't give power. It takes it. It'll drain whoever sits on it, use their life force to resurrect something ancient. How do you know this? Caspian demanded. Because I've spent 6 months investigating. 6 months hating myself for what I said to you. Sterling's eyes found Rowan. I was wrong about everything. This is touching, Mordecai sneered, but pointless. Kill them all. Vampires poured from every shadow. Dozens. Hundreds. The fight was immediate and brutal. Sterling moved like a man possessed, cutting through vampires with lethal precision. Shadow Covenant fighters rallied. Hunters and vampires fighting side by side, unprecedented, impossible happening anyway. In the chaos, Rowan lost sight of Caspian. Then she saw him surrounded by 5 elders being driven toward the throne. No. She ran. A vampire blocked her path. She broke his nose, kept running. Nothing mattered except reaching Caspian. Isolde Ravencroft appeared from nowhere. She hit Rowan like a battering ram, and they went down in a tangle of limbs in fury. You ruined everything, Isolde screamed, knife flashing. Sterling was mine. Then you came along, and he couldn't stop talking about you. He chose you. Oh, Rowan gasped, blocking a strike. He chose duty, not me, never me. Isolde's eyes were wild. Do you know what that's like? I didn't, liar. The knife came down. Sterling's sword stopped it. He'd appeared between them, moving faster than Rowan had ever seen. His blade caught Isolde's, turned it aside. His other hand grabbed Rowan and pulled her back. Enough, he said quietly. Isolde stared at him. You're defending her still. I'm defending what's right. Sterling didn't look away from his former fiancée. I'm sorry, Isolde. Sorry I couldn't be what you needed. But this isn't justice. It's genocide. It's survival. It's murder. Isolde's face twisted. Then she lunged, not at Rowan, at Sterling. Her knife found the gap in his armor, sank deep. He gasped, stumbled. No. Rowan screamed. Sterling fell. Isolde stood over him, triumph and horror warring on her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. But if I can't have you, she can't either. She raised the knife again. Caspian's hand caught her wrist. The Vampire King had crossed the cathedral in a heartbeat. His grip was iron. Let go. Isolde struggled. Instead, Caspian disarmed her with a twist, sent her sprawling. Then he was kneeling beside Sterling, assessing the wound. Deep, he said, but not immediately fatal. You'll live. Good to know. Sterling coughed blood. Rowan the throne, don't let them. He passed out. Rowan dropped beside him, her hands working to staunch the bleeding. Training Magnus had drilled into her, took over. I need to get him out of here, she said. No time. Ta. Caspian looked toward the sanguine throne. The elders had activated something. The throne was glowing brighter, pulsing faster. They're starting the ritual anyway. The world tilted. Rowan felt it in her chest, a pulling sensation, like invisible hooks sinking into her sternum. The throne was calling to her, not to Caspian, to her. The hybrid, Mordecai's voice echoed. Of course, vampire and hunter blood combined. The perfect fuel. We don't need the king. We need her. Rowan tried to resist, couldn't. Her body was moving on its own, drawn toward that terrible throne. She reached for Caspian, but he was too far. Reached for Sterling, but he was unconscious. Her hands found only air. She was at the throne, sitting down before she could stop herself. The moment she touched it, agony exploded through every nerve. The throne was drinking her. Not her blood, her life, her essence. Everything that made Rowan herself was being pulled out, fed into the crystallized structure beneath her. She tried to scream. Couldn't. Tried to stand. Couldn't move. Through dimming vision, she saw Caspian running toward her. Don't, she tried to say. Run. But he didn't run. He crashed into the elders like an avalanche. 3 of them went down immediately. Caspian fought with desperate fury trying to reach her. But there were too many vampires. Too many obstacles. Rowan felt her heartbeat slowing. Felt warmth leaving her extremities. And all she could think was that she'd never told Caspian she loved him. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have said it. Then Caspian was there. He'd broken through. Now he stood before the throne and his face was the most terrible thing Rowan had ever seen. Pure devastation. Get off, he said. Can't, it won't let me. Then I'll make it. He grabbed her arms. Tried to pull. The throne's power lashed out, threw him back 20 feet. He got up, tried again. Same result. Stop, Rowan gasped. You're just hurting yourself. I don't care. He was on his feet again, approaching slower. 318 years ago, I lost Elise because I was too weak to save her. I won't lose you. Caspian, I love you. The words tore from him like confession. I've loved you since you saved me in the ruins of your home. Since you chose to protect me when everyone said I was a monster. Since you looked at me like I was worth something. Tears poured down Rowan's face. I love you too. That's why you have to run. There is no myself without you. He sat down, not on the throne beside her. There was only one seat. He sat on the ground in front of it, placed his hands over hers where they gripped the armrests, and he poured his power into her, all of it. 318 years of accumulated strength. He fed it into Rowan, and the throne drank it greedily. Drank him. No, Rowan sobbed. No, you'll die. I know. His voice was getting fainter, his skin graying. But maybe if it's full, it'll let you go. That's not how it worked. Then we find another way. His eyes were closing, his grip loosening. He was dying right in front of her, giving everything so she might live. And something inside Rowan broke, or awakened. Her hybrid blood dormant all this time suddenly roared to life. The throne had been feeding on her vampiric side, but her hunter blood remained, untouched, waiting. Now both sides ignited simultaneously. Power flooded through her like lightning. Not vampire power, not hunter strength, something new, something that existed in the space between. The throne had been designed to consume one type of energy. It couldn't handle both at once. Rowan stood. The throne screamed an actual sound, crystal cracking, ancient magic fracturing. She grabbed Caspian's hand and pulled. This time the connection held. This time her hybrid nature acted as a bridge. Together they channeled power back into the throne, not feeding it, overwhelming it. The crystallized blood structure began to crack. Red light poured from the fissures. The elders shrieked in horror. "Impossible!" Mordecai roared. "The throne is eternal." "Nothing is eternal," Rowan gasped. She and Caspian looked at each other. No words needed. They both knew what came next. They poured everything into destroying it. Her hybrid power, his vampire strength, every ounce of magic they possessed burning through them like wildfire. The throne couldn't contain it. The cracks spread, widened, then exploded. The force threw everyone in the cathedral off their feet. Rowan felt the power leave her in a rush, not drained like before, but released, set free. The hybrid abilities that had awakened burned out like a candle in wind. When the light faded, she was lying in rubble. Human. Just human. No vampire strength, no enhanced senses. Just an exhausted 19-year-old girl who could barely move. Beside her, Caspian groaned. His crimson eyes had faded to dark brown. His inhuman pallor had warmed to something almost healthy. When he sat up, he moved like a normal person. Slow, careful. "I'm mortal," he whispered. "So am I." They stared at each other. Then simultaneously they laughed. It was exhausted, half hysterical, but genuine. "We're alive," Rowan said. "We're normal." Is that good or bad? I have no idea. Around them, the cathedral was in chaos. The elders had fled when the throne exploded. Their power had been tied to it somehow. The vampires and hunters were staring at each other in confusion, weapons lowered. Sterling sat up slowly, his wound already bandaged. Someone from Shadow Covenant must have helped him. He looked at Rowan across the wreckage. "You did it," he said quietly. "We did it." She gestured to Caspian. Sterling nodded, then surprising everyone, he stood and bowed. "I was wrong, about vampires, about you, about everything." He looked at the hunters around him. "We all were. This war, it's been built on lies, on the elders manipulating both sides." "What are you saying?" one of the hunters demanded. "I'm saying it's over. The fighting, the killing, all of it." Sterling's voice rang clear. "Shadow Covenant proved coexistence is possible. If we're smart, we'll learn from them." Silence. Then slowly weapons lowered. Humans and vampires looked at each other. Really looked. Saw not monsters or prey, but people. Scared, tired, ready for something different. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was a beginning. They found Isolde 3 days later, sitting in the ruins of the throne room, shadow staring at nothing. "I'm sorry," Isolde said without looking up, "for everything, for being so consumed by jealousy I couldn't see straight." Rowan sat beside her. "He never loved me. Not really." "Yes, he did. That's what made it worse." Isolde's laugh was bitter. "You didn't even want him." "Love isn't a choice." "No, but how we act on it is." Isolde finally looked at her. "I could have been happy for him. Instead, I became a monster." "You're not a monster. You're just human." "That's generous. I don't deserve it." "Probably not." Rowan stood, offered her hand. "But I'm giving it anyway. That's what Shadow Covenant is for. Second chances." Isolde stared at the offered hand. Then slowly she took it. 1 month later, Rowan and Caspian stood at the edge of Crimson Peak. They'd come back to say goodbye, to bury the past properly. They'd rebuilt Magnus's grave, added a marker for Elise, planted flowers that would bloom in spring. "Are you ready?" Rowan asked. Caspian looked out over the endless forest. For what? Normal life. No powers, no destiny, just existing. He turned to her with a smile that still made her heart stutter. "With you, absolutely." They'd made plans. Shadow Covenant would continue, led by Sterling and others who'd found purpose in building something better. Isolde was helping too, seeking redemption through service. But Rowan and Caspian were done with grand missions. They were going to be boring. They'd bought a small farm 2 days south, nothing fancy, just land and a house that needed work and chickens that needed feeding. Caspian had never farmed before. Rowan had only helped Magnus with pigs. They'd probably be terrible at it. They couldn't wait. "I still can't believe you're choosing this," Caspian said, as they walked back down the mountain. "I was special for 19 years. It was exhausting. And now I want to be normal with you." He caught her hand, brought it to his lips. "I spent 300 years being a king, being alone, being everything except happy. I'll take normal if it means waking up next to you. That's the deal. Every morning, For as long as we have. How long do you think that is for humans? Rowan smiled. If we're lucky, maybe 60 years. 60 years. He tested the words. After 3 centuries, that sounds like a blink. It is, but it's our blink. They reached the bottom of the mountain. Their horses waited normal horses, bought with normal money, ready for a normal journey. The sunset painted everything gold and crimson. Rowan, Caspian's voice was soft. Yeah, thank you for saving me, for believing in me, for loving me when I couldn't love myself. Thank you for staying, for fighting, for choosing me over power. He kissed her as the sun set, gentle, sweet, kingly normal. When they pulled apart, he whispered, ready. For what? The rest of our lives. Rowan looked at the road ahead, winding, uncertain, gloriously mundane. Looked at the man beside her, no longer a king, just Caspian. Looked at the future they'd build with ordinary hands and extraordinary love. Let's go home, she said. They rode into the dying light, leaving Crimson Peak behind, leaving legends and legacies and all the weight of who they'd been. Ahead lay a farm, chickens, seasons of planting and harvest, quiet mornings and quieter nights, arguments about whose turn it was to feed the animals, laughter over burned dinners, the slow accumulation of shared memories. A life, not an epic, not a saga, just two people who'd found each other in impossible circumstances and chosen the most radical thing of all, simplicity. A child asked Rowan about the scar on her wrist at the village market. How'd you get it? The girl asked, maybe 7 years old, curious and fearless. Rowan looked at the thin white line, barely visible now, the place where she'd first fed Caspian her blood. I saved someone, she said simply. Were they worth it? She thought about Caspian at home, probably cursing at the chickens who never went into their coop willingly, about the life they'd built, about choosing love over power every single day for a decade. Yes, Rowan said. He was worth everything. The child nodded and ran off. Rowan finished her shopping and headed home. The farmhouse came into view, small, weathered, perfect. Smoke rose from the chimney. Their dog barked a greeting. And there in the garden, Caspian looked up from weeding. His dark hair was gray at the temples, now humans aged, and he'd embraced it completely. His face had laugh lines. His hands were calloused from honest work. He smiled when he saw her, the same smile that had undone her that first morning in the cave. The same smile she'd wake up to for the rest of their normal, beautiful human lives. Welcome home, he called. Rowan smiled back. She was home. Finally, gloriously, impossibly home, and somewhere in the distance, Crimson Peak stood silent. Its secrets buried, its king retired, its story complete. The mountain remembered everything, but Rowan and Caspian had learned to forget. And in forgetting, they'd found the only magic that ever truly mattered. Each other.